to me, talk to me. If you feel the need or when you need to feel it, talk to me. If you feel the need or when you need to feel it, talk to me.
Hello everyone, you're watching That's IT. I'm Timothy Go. Well, as you very well know, we like to feature the latest and the hippest stuff in the show, but this week we're going to make a 180-degree turn and show you what you can do with your old PCs or your mobile phones. Did you know that there are actually steps to take before you can throw them away? Before we talk about that, let's talk about what you can do with your old mobile phone. The first option that most of us would think of is trade-in, surrendering your old phone to partially finance a new one. In a time like this, you'll likely be most concerned about the models you can get your hands on. Should you pick the trendiest, the feature-packed, or the best value for money? But hold on a minute. Has it ever crossed your mind what's going to happen to that old phone? I'm really curious, so I decided to find out more. All right, May. Tell me honestly, what do you do with the old phones that people trade in?
Oh, that's simple. We have to collect them back, and in our department, there's a procurement team who will sell it back to the resellers.
So I assume the phone has to be at least in working condition. Doesn't have to be perfect mint condition, right?
Well, basically, cosmetically, it has to look nice enough to accept it. So we'll look out for a battery, the charger, as well as the instrument, which is the handset.
And then software-wise, you can refurbish and resell.
Precisely.
But when you resell, who actually buys old phones? I mean, everyone wants a new phone these days.
Well, there would be a segment that likes to buy second-hand phone. Predominantly, I would think the foreigners. Okay, and it all depends on the price point, and there is such a market though.
This one you have to answer for me. How long does a new phone really last? A year, 2 years, 3 years before you can actually trade them in?
Typically, a phone will last between 12 to 18 months because the batteries, a lot of time people come into my shop to buy extra batteries. And due to the contract that they are on, they could actually upgrade their phones when they hit 12 months or even, up to 24 months. So if you ask me, a casual user will definitely take about 18 months to change a phone. Just to add on the point, manufacturers are launching many sets, on a quarterly basis. So that could actually prompt the customer to even upgrade or change the phone even earlier than, your 24 months or your 18 months.
No wonder older models like these seem almost ancient, although they're just a few years old. Well, that's because no one carries them anymore. After all, if a new model is just around the corner, why hang on to the old ones? But while there isn't high demand for them, it isn't the end of the road for these dinosaurs. But what else can we do with an old phone? Well, I was told that you can actually take the parts out and transform it into new ones. That's right, it's called recycling. One company that is a major recycler of mobile phones is Nokia. Nokia recycles almost all parts of a phone, batteries and components such as LCD screen, camera, and even the phone cover. The phone's plastic content is recycled into filler for products. Precious metals such as gold, silver, copper, and palladium extracted from the phone also get a second lease of life as raw materials to be used in making dental and medical products and even jewelry. Recycling old phones leads to the reuse of scarce resources and energy. So if you want to help Mother Earth, bring your old mobile phone to the nearest Nokia Care Center, where they will have it processed for recycling. So an old phone can be brought back to life, right? What about an old PC like this one? You'd like to throw it away, but there's actually some value in this. Here is a perfect place for you to get your money's worth for your old computer. A shop which buys and sells old PCs. In this day and age when most of us want the latest model, Who buys an old computer?
Mostly all those low incomes families, as well as exporters from the Indonesia's, Vietnam's, and where Cambodia's.
So these people come to you, they buy a second-hand computer,
Yes.
and they bring it back home to sell it.
Yes, and they are resellers.
The amazing thing is that when a shop like this buys an old PC, it doesn't even refurbish it. Sometimes, all they do is install a new operating system into the computer, and voila, it's ready for a new owner. And do you know what the going price is for an old machine like this? Less than $40 if it's a Pentium 1. A Pentium 2 would fetch about $95. This shop has such a wide range of obsolete computers that it looks like a mini museum. And guess what I found? Ta-da! This laptop, about a decade old, would cost about $3,000 back then. But guess what? It was bought from the owner for $3 to $5. Dirt cheap, I'd say. Prices are low, and they also accept all kinds of old PCs. Jeffrey told me he would even buy my old laptop, which doesn't have a functioning motherboard or a hard drive. That's because depending on its condition, old PCs will be processed for recycling or resale. Parts of the computer will then be taken apart and turned into scrap metal like these, which will then be exported to countries like Indonesia. And computers are not the only thing they sell. There are also second-hand film cameras. Remember those that still load film? Well, these would cost you between $3 to $6. You can also buy second-hand MP3 players, even iPods. They'll set you back between $60 to $130. So go ahead, take your pick among these oldies but goodies. So there you go. Now you know where to go if you have an old PC that you want to dispose of. Of course, your old computer is not just valuable because of its resale value. Just like an old mobile phone, it can be recycled too. So when we return, we'll show you how your used PC, electronic gadgets, or even ink cartridges are brought back to life. We'll be right back.
Talk to me.
These old computers may look harmless, but did you know that if you actually throw them in the landfill or the incinerator, it could pose a serious threat to your health and the environment? I'm not scaring you. It's true. Yep, before you dump your used PC into a rubbish bin, be careful of what it might lead to.
With most products, if you have some hazardous substances in the product, if you have plastics containing flame retardants, like in most products, if you do not dispose of that product properly, if you incinerate it in an incineration process which is not well controlled, it's going to emit toxic gases, which are going to go in the air, and that's obviously an impact on the environment.
To help reduce this negative impact on human health and the environment, HP has devised a way to take back old computers and electronic items like printers under its Assets Recovery Service.
When a product needs to be recycled, it would first be disassembled. We want to make sure that some specific components, some specific parts of the products are going to be separated from the product.
In a recycling process, components such as batteries that contain hazardous materials are first separated from the other parts.
The rest of the product basically consists of plastic and metals. That subassembly is then being shredded through a shredding equipment, and the materials in that shredding process are being separated by an electromagnetic process. So the ferrous materials are separated from the non-ferrous and from the plastics, and basically you end up as an outlet of that process with 3 buckets of materials: plastics, ferrous, non-ferrous, which can be reused as material recovery into other products.
And do you know that some parts of a computer actually have more value than the others? One of them is this motherboard. So don't throw your motherboard away because it actually contains some pretty valuable stuff.
Typically, a PC board contains some precious metals, and so if you melt the PC board, you recover a significant amount of precious metal. So that is certainly a sub-assembly which has a value.
HP offers its recycling services to consumers in many different parts of the world. All a customer needs to do is to put his or her old HP item in a box, and it will be collected right from the doorstep. A pity, though, that such service is not offered for consumers in this region. In Singapore, HP's recycling program is only for its business partners.
The issue in Asia, and we find this to be the case in countries like China, India, Malaysia, here in Singapore, is that there is a process of street collection. And so consumers tend to wait until a street collector would knock at their door, take back the product. They may even offer a small cash incentive if they collect back an electronic product or a print cartridge. And so products tend to disappear in that channel. So we have these two collection channels, the street collection and what we may offer, HP on the market. And it is eventually a consumer choice to define which channel he wants to use to return his product. The issue is that end consumers do not always fully appreciate that when they return products to a street collection process, they may get a small financial incentive, but not all products that they return that way are going to be environmentally responsibly recycled.
Well, let's face it, most consumers would rather trade in their old stuff and get some compensation than recycle them. HP knows that and has embarked on several campaigns to educate people in the region on environmental awareness. Until then, recycling services for PCs and other electronics will not be available here. Not just yet.
I think when it's probably going to be not before a few months that we will be ready to implement that in Singapore.
The good news is, for those who want to help the environment, there are other computer accessories that can be recycled. Another item that can be reprocessed is this, a printer cartridge. Did you know that it can actually be taken apart and transformed into recycled raw materials for use in new products? You may wonder how a used cartridge can get a second lease of life. Well, the recycling process is similar to that of a computer. Hazardous materials are first disposed of. Parts with value, such as plastic and metals, are then reprocessed.
In the recycling process we use in Asia Pacific, we try to recover as much material as we can. That's why we want to send all the recycling, all the cartridges that we collect in the different countries to that specific recycling location. We would shred that ink cartridge in that recycling process. We would wash off the inks. It's a very specific technology process because there are different types of inks that need to be separated. And when the plastics and the metals are washed off, then they basically become commodity materials again, like any recycled plastic or ferrous metal or precious metal that can be reused as a commodity into other products.
So remember, once you're done with your printer cartridge, don't throw it away. For those living in Singapore, drop by any SingPost office where there are collection bins for old cartridges. There you go. You've done your tiny bit for the environment. Dump it, give it away, or sell it. But first, there are things you need to know before you recycle your old computer. I'll tell you more when we return. You're thinking about throwing away your old PC, right? Well, before you ditch it, there are some precautions to take. After all, it is our personal files in there that might get compromised if it falls in the wrong hands. And deleting your files from your hard drive is just not good enough. If I want to sell my used laptop and get a good price for it, I have to make sure it looks its best, just like a brand new machine. But hang on, cleaning the physical surface of the laptop isn't enough. What's more important is cleaning what's inside the machine, the hard disk.
If you were to give away your PC and somebody could actually recover that file, then they could actually have your name, your address, your credit card numbers, your expiry dates, enough information to pretend to be you and do what we call identity theft.
The most important part of any machine is the data, your information. And by and large, the tools that most people use, like delete and formatting of the hard disk, is just not secure enough. Because Computer World reported in 2003 that there were 2 MIT students that took 150 hard disks. And out of the 150 old hard disks that they used, they were able to recover 74% of them. Without pointing to specific URLs, you could quite easily go to Google and look for a few sites where you could find tools to do hard disk data retrieval.
Wow, that's scary. I certainly want to keep the files I have in my PC just the way it is, private. So merely deleting them and emptying my recycling bin isn't enough because technically the data is still there.
The hard disk is a very interesting place. The way the hard disk works is that the data usually comes associated with a descriptive header. So what formatting and deletion does is it basically removes all this signposting. So the data still sits on the hard disk. So it's a bit like saying that we remove all the signboards in Toa Payoh. So you don't know where's Lorong 8 or where's Lorong 5. But the streets are still there. The houses are still there. The police post is still there.
There are ways to make sure your data does not fall into the wrong hands. Before ditching your PC, degauss the hard disk and throw it away. Or better still, you can simply destroy it. But there are less extreme ways, like using applications to scrub the disk. Norton SystemWorks, for instance, has a wipe info function that lets users overwrite their sensitive data. And if you have a ThinkPad notebook, there's a secure data disposal application that you can use to scrub your hard disk. There's also an application called Norton Ghost, which lets users create a mirror image of their system for backup. But it has another useful function, data scrubbing. The software can destroy data almost without a trace.
If I were to say this file is named Timothy Goh and that file is stored at house number 8, the data is actually at house number 8. In the computer world, what Norton Ghost can actually help the consumers and enterprises is we actually go to the house and level the house, but we don't use bulldozers in the computer world. So what we do is that we actually overwrite the entire area that's used to hold the house, and we do it 6 times over because that's a good standard, right, for actually cleaning that up.
But it isn't always necessary to ditch your old computer just because it's running a little slower. There are ways to rejuvenate your PC so it will work better.
One is to make sure that you back up the data often enough and back up your system image often enough so that if you get to a point that your system is now running slowly, you can then recover back to your original system image that came when your system was originally first set up. That will be running at its optimal mode.
You know how we love to install and uninstall software from our PC? Well, this actually leaves a software trail that slows the system down. So it is important to do a little spring cleaning on your hard disk once in a while.
Most auto companies will tell you that every 10,000 kilometers bring the car in. Spring cleaning is done every month, and that largely depends on the user again. Because if you're a very active user on the internet, you might even want to consider bi-weekly. But if you are not so active on the internet and you don't change your application so much, once a month, once a quarter might suffice.
But then again, I truly understand the desire to get the latest, fastest, and the hippest tech gadgets in the market, even when our old ones are still in perfect condition.
As human beings, we're transitory people. We evolve, so our tastes change, our needs change, our desires change, our body, weight changes. Why shouldn't our possessions change to track that?
And this author believes that we're no longer the hoarders of old stuff that we used to be.
Instead of buying something and expecting to hold on to it for the rest of our lives, we buy things with the expectation that sometime in the future, we're going to replace them with something new. And we'll sell it online to get money to buy something new.
Well, if your PC or your mobile phone is not the latest in the market, but they're still in good condition, you can actually donate it or auction it on the internet and turn your tech stash into online cash. And selling secondhand stuff on the internet is better because the market is global.
Historically, if you look at these secondhand shops, they really were very small venues, and you didn't get a lot of value for the items you put into those stores, largely because they only catered to a small community around the area that they exist in. Well, with sites like eBay and Yahoo and Google, you can now reach millions of people. On eBay alone, you have 200 million people that use the site. So if you take something and put it on the site to sell, you're going to reach many more people and get a much better price.
You know, many tech stuff we have today become obsolete even before we take them out of their boxes. So it's not a matter of whether a tech gadget is old or new, as long as it gets the job done. And with that, it's time to say goodbye. Of course, don't forget to visit my blog and give us your thoughts if you're online. I'm Timothy Go. That's it.
Talk to me. Talk to me. If you feel the need or when you need to feel it, talk to me. If you feel the need or when you need to feel it, talk to me.
Hello everyone, I'm Timothy Go and welcome to an action-packed episode of That's IT this week. Now if you run, swim, or engage in any kind of team sport, more often than not, you exercise to keep fit. And when you do these, you gradually challenge your body to improve. Now just imagine the things that can happen when technology gives sport a helping hand. Let's go find out. She's training hard to qualify for international swim meets. He wants to clock a better time to compete with the world's best. He is giving his all to be a professional goalkeeper someday. These are students of the Singapore Sports School who've made the court, the pool, and the field their classrooms. Besides dedication and discipline, they have a secret weapon to help improve their performances. They use technology.
You look at the sports school, technology is used everywhere, all right? In terms of improving the athlete in this particular area of sports, it gives them quick answers so that they can really look as where it goes wrong and what needs to be improved. Without technology, coaches always use their naked eye to observe movements, to have a feel whether the guy is weak in his speed or strong in his endurance, etc. But through technology, it addresses these subjective elements in an objective manner.
One area that uses lots of gadgets and gizmos is biomechanics. Through simulation and modeling, each movement is studied and measured to help athletes understand how their bodies perform.
I like track and field because it's cool, it's fun when you're running, when you're sprinting. The wind just blows against you and you just see that your surrounding, it's fast. And I like it. One day I just hope to go Olympics, win a medal for Singapore. As a sprinter in track and field, timing is very crucial. And just a blink of a second, it's very important to us. And technology has helped us by teaching us how to examine ourselves so that we can see which running style fits us most so we can sprint faster.
Using a small camera, a computer, and a software application that analyzes the motions of the athletes, instant feedback is possible. So it's action, plug, and play. Literally.
In the past, basically, such reports will have taken 2 or 3 weeks, and imagine the effects of it, after performing, and 3 weeks or a few weeks later, you get the sort of analysis of yourself, as compared to once you've done the performance, and after a few seconds, you just walk to the computer and you get the visual, immediate feedback of yourself. Especially useful when, let's say, that was a semis final, and immediately, say, 2 hours later is the final, we can actually feedback to the athletes. Gone are the days where the coach will ask the athletes to imagine what they've done, but now they can actually see for themselves.
Before, one could only monitor the effort each player is putting into a game, one at a time, but now that's changed.
So that means all 11 players of a soccer team can put on the heart rate monitoring system, play their game. At the end of the game, take back, we slot it into the computer, we get all the heart rates of all the players, and the coaches have a holistic view and say, wow, this forward is really playing hard, but this midfielder is not working as hard as he should be.
Students here are also taught to analyze their own progress by feeding inputs of their action into this computer and translating them into a series of animated sequences. They're able to see how they've executed each movement and correct their errors. Well, with the help of technology, no wonder more and more athletes are breaking records. But it is not just for people who play competitively, it's also for people like you and me who simply want to race our heartbeats. Did you know that as you get fitter, your heart is able to pump more blood with every beat? Or that to lose weight effectively doesn't mean you have to exercise at high intensity levels? How about the fact that the fitter you are, the lower your resting heart rate is? Well, these are just some things Jessica found out when she decided to trade in lazy sleep-ins for sweathouse sessions, and technology has helped nudge her on.
I got myself a heart rate monitor, and it's not just a heart rate monitor, it actually is my personal trainer. One of the amazing features that I like is that I'm able to program sort of like a reminder in the watch to make sure that I really train within the zone that I have targeted myself to exercise for the week. So if I am too lazy, if I am running too slow, the watch will give off a beep to remind me that, hey, you got to really speed up. Or if I'm pushing myself too hard and my heart is beating really fast and probably dying soon, and the watch will also give off a beep to remind myself to, hey, take it easy, you got to slow down a bit. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
These sporty gadgets help motivate Jessica to challenge herself to set a personal goal to compete in a triathlon. Her rigorous training includes cycling, running, and swimming 3 to 4 times a week. Her heart rate monitor, which she wears on her wrist, doubles up as a watch. It also lets her keep an exercise log. Jessica can also download information on each training session via sonic link between her heart rate monitor and her computer onto the internet. And she's able to keep track of her weekly performance and compare her progress from the month before.
I need not be afraid that I might lose the data in case my watch runs out of battery, or in case I lose my watch. So based on the graph, I'm able to have a bird's eye view of my performance for the week, whether, have I really achieved my target, and I've been consistent. And also it gives me an idea how much more I need to train leading to my event or my race.
What Jessica likes best about her heart rate monitor is its FootPod accessory. The tiny gadget weighs less than 80 grams, so she's able to attach it to her shoe using her shoelaces before she goes for her run. With it, Jessica can monitor her speed and distance as she runs. So it's goodbye to the treadmills and rounds at the tracks for her.
Our FootPod is designed using an inertia sensor that works by tracking movement 1,000 times a second, so it can differentiate